Manga and anime tend to have two types of power-ups and transformations, the first being ones which are foreshadowed and worked up to over a period of time, the prime example of this being Super Saiyan from Dragon Ball, where the second are those which kinda come out of nowhere. Neither type is inherently better than the other, though the latter tends to be done poorly more often than not. Berserk finds itself in an interesting position in this regard because its transformation or power-up falls within both categories while simultaneously drawing inspiration, most likely indirectly, from writing that is far older. What I'm getting at here is this. The Berserker Armor, in all its badass glory, is one of the greatest transformations of all time, and I want to explain why that's precisely the case. As odd as this sounds, Berserk is very Western despite originating from Japan. Yeah, no shit. The setting is inspired by medieval Europe, I hear some of you say. I bring this up because Guts, much like the characters in My Hero Academia, what a weird connection, draws a lot of parallels to Western heroes. No, I'm not talking about Batman or Superman, I'm talking about these guys, the Greek heroes of myth, like Perseus, Hercules, and Odysseus. There are a lot of similarities between these characters and Guts which warrants its own video, like the struggle against destiny and fate, enduring otherworldly trials, getting fucked over by gods, and some good old-fashioned, certainly not gay man love. But right now I want to focus on something a bit more specific, a step in the hero's journey many of those I mentioned tread, called the meeting with the goddess. Real quick, I do want to acknowledge that the broad strokes that I mentioned in relation to Guts and Western heroes could be applied to Guts and Eastern heroes as well. I bring up ancient Greek ones in particular since they are highly recognizable, have more specific similarities to the Black Swordsman, and their stories tend to be a bit more formulaic, if you will. There are a lot of common elements that tend to reappear. The way Guts gets the Berserker Armor is rather odd, at least for me as a reader, as BooFire191, because it goes against every convention I like concerning power-ups and transformations. For all intents and purposes, the armor is essentially handed to him by Shirkei's master. I probably said that wrong, oh well. Guts doesn't work for it, or go through some great trial to earn it. It's a segment in the manga I should hate, yet I don't. In fact, Guts butchering countless apostles with ease is one of the most glorious things I've ever seen. A lot of lesser manga and anime have done something similar to Berserk, yet they failed where Berserk succeeded. This makes me beg the question, what's the difference? Why do I like one but not the other? To address that question, I want to highlight a sentiment brought on by the YouTuber Spired in his video about escalation in Berserk. Guts needed the Berserker Armor. On the face of it, without any context, this statement seems rather odd, since in most manga and anime that have transformations, the protagonist needs a power-up to defeat their foe. Within the context of Berserk, however, this rather straightforward statement that touches upon a reoccurring trope in the genre takes on a whole new meaning. By the time Guts receives the Berserker Armor, he has become the pinnacle of human strength. He has gone toe-to-toe with demonic, or angelic, depending upon your interpretation, beings, and has come out on top time and time again. He's as strong as any normal man can get. However, the world has changed. The threat has escalated. A threshold has been crossed at points very, very literally. Guts can no longer be just a man. He has to become something more. Shirkei's master is a powerful old woman and master of magic who's seen the threat of the God Hand before. She's like Galadriel from Lord of the Rings. She knows the enemy Guts and his companions have to contend with, and understands that if there's to be any chance of victory, they're going to need her help. The moment Shirkei's master gives Guts' companions magical fetishes is akin to something called the meeting with the goddess in contemporary literature, something I mentioned before. This step in Campbell's hero's journey comes after the heroes have crossed the threshold of the world they know into one that is foreign and alien, one that's extraordinary. The gifts granted by the goddess are, unto themselves, foreign and alien, thus allowing ordinary people to contend with extraordinary obstacles. The reason this is relevant comes down to the makeup of those traveling with Guts. Outside of Shirkei and the elves, everyone is ordinary. They need some sort of boon that allows them to contend with the forces of an extraordinary world. Guts, on the other hand, is an extraordinary man in an extraordinary world. His physique, skill, and sheer willpower put him on equal footing with beings such as apostles. The Dragon Slayer is an extension of this fact, as wielding it visually demonstrates to the reader what Guts is capable of. It's a giant anime sword, that's not actually anime, whose size serves a purpose. Here's the problem though. Guts is an extraordinary man in an extraordinary world, which means he's little better than an ordinary man in an ordinary world. If he's to stop Griffith and the God Hand, that has to change. What makes the introduction of the Berserker Armor not feel like an ass pull, though it, for the most part, comes out of nowhere, is the fact that the characters and world unto itself crossed a point of no return. It's a moment that the setting itself and its radical change, other than the work of its characters, built up to. Guts putting on the armor indicates this change and marks the next stage of his journey. Much like Perseus or the other great heroes of myth, Guts needed help from one who understood the strange world he just entered. Otherwise, his quest would fail. Here's the thing though. Guts couldn't just be an even more extraordinary man in an extraordinary world. This, in part, explains why he declines a fetish when offered one. There would have been little point. Guts is going up against Griffith and the God Hand. He needs something to level the playing field with them, not Nosferatu Zod or the other apostles. A regular fetish, like the ones Isidro, Serpico, and Farnese received, wouldn't have been enough. Thus, Guts needed the Berserker Armor. This begs the question, why didn't Shirkei's master prep the armor and give it to Guts when the others received their magical fetishes? If Guts needed it, why didn't he get it sooner? The answer is rather simple and comes down to the master's history with the armor. Skull Knight and her have a past, both with each other and with the armor. Those two have walked a path similar to the ones Guts and Shirkei walk. She understands it's a fetish of great power that cannot be taken lightly or used irresponsibly. A power which is the opposing counterpart of the Behelit. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? Let me explain. Magic, as it works in the world of Berserk, is based around contracts and cooperation. Mages like Shirkei tap into the magical realm and ask the entities that dwell there for help. Magical fetishes work in a similar way, as witnessed with Serpico's Sylph Cloak and Sword. Even though the magic system is rather trippy and based around very fantastical ideas, its core concepts are applied to everything paranormal with two exceptions: the Behelit and the Berserker Armor. Two things which start with B, go figure. On the surface, the Behelit seems to fall within the precedents set for magic in the setting, since it's used to form a contract with the God Hand. What sets it apart, however, is the nature of this contract. Instead of cooperation, it requires a sacrifice. In order to gain the power offered by the Behelit, an individual has to sacrifice the ones they love or hold dear to the God Hand, something which no other fetish or item in the setting requires thus far. In essence, the sacrifice of others grants an individual near godlike power, at least in certain instances like Griffith. This is important to mention since the Berserker Armor, like the Behelit, breaks the conventions of magic laid out in the setting. Put simply, the armor was imbued with a violent ode, which allows the human body to transcend its limits by blocking out the wearer's ability to feel pain, while also keeping the body together in the midst of battle. There's no contracts or cooperation, just an overwhelming sense of rage and a wave of negative emotions. In essence, the power of the Berserker Armor stems from the individual and the sacrifices they make by putting it on. The armor is self-destructive. Everything it does hurts the wearer in one form or another, sometimes to such a degree it leaves permanent damage beyond just scarring. The Behelit is power at the cost of others. The Berserker Armor is power at the cost of oneself. This distinction is important to understand, for it not only further contrasts Guts and Griffith, but it marks a major shift in Berserk as a story. It's definitively no longer a tale about an enraged swordsman hunting down demons for vengeance, but about a battered man putting it all on the line to protect the ones he cares about. What makes the Berserker Armor one of, if not the greatest transformation of all time, isn't so much the overwhelming power our hero gains, but rather smaller moments like this. After, very literally, letting Shirkei in, Guts' priorities completely change. He is no longer concerned with petty things like hatred and vengeance. His fight with the apostles just doesn't matter. It's outweighed by his desire to protect those he cares about, be it Casca or everyone else. Like the world which required him to put on the armor, Guts has crossed a threshold, a point of no return. He is no longer a lone mercenary, a captain in the band of the Hawk, or even the Black Swordsman. He's now a hero. Though many transformations have impressive amounts of build-up behind them, the prime example being Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan 2, few if any have as much thematic weight as the Berserker Armor. Guts didn't train or suffer through the harsh ordeal to obtain the armor because it was unnecessary. The ordeal to obtain it was Guts' life unto itself, and how it changed him as a person. If Guts received the Berserker Armor at the start of his tale, he would have given in to his selfish rage, his quest for vengeance, and become a monster. If the Beast of Darkness is anything to go by, he would have become little better than Griffith. However, with the aid of Puck, Isidro, Farnese, Serpico, Shirke, Casca, and everyone else who's been there at his side, Guts was able to find a way out of his darkness and become a better man. This is something I feel many people forget about when discussing the drawbacks of the Berserker Armor. After its introduction, the fights in Berserk take on a whole new meaning. They're no longer about Guts using every tool and dirty trick he has in his arsenal to take down apostles, but rather the threat the armor has upon our hero's mind. We as readers know Guts can kill virtually anything if he lets loose, but we understand it's very easy for him to lose control. If the power-up that came with the Berserker Armor was merely balanced out by drawbacks, then it would have been little better than the Kaioken from Dragon Ball. This, however, isn't the case. Unlike Super Saiyan 1, 2, or 3, and how they become irrelevant come Dragon Ball Super, the Berserker Armor has and will continue to have an impact on the story because the drawbacks are there for reasons other than power balance. They're there to make Guts face his demons and become a better man. They're there to make him a hero. The drawbacks have, and will always have, narrative impact. When Guts put on the armor for the first time, he was no longer a man driven solely by his own selfish desire for revenge. He had grown into someone better. As time passed, as Guts faced foe after foe, the armor forced him to come face to face with his demons. Demons which he's been able to overcome thanks to those he let in. Once more, this fetish that Guts needed to continue his quest, the one that tears down his body, has made him a better man. The Berserker Armor is a trial unto itself. Unlike a traditional transformation, an example being Super Saiyan, the Berserker Armor isn't the end, the high point of Guts' journey. It is instead the tool he needs to reach his true potential. As the story progresses, Guts' rage holds less and less power over him. He's becoming a better man. The form the Berserker Armor takes in recent chapters is a testament to this. Very literally, his eyes are open. He is no longer blinded by rage. He's becoming something more. In a similar vein to how the Dragon Slayer demonstrates Guts' physique, showing how he's an extraordinary man from an ordinary world, the Berserker Armor puts on display Guts' strength of character, the trials he's gone through over the years, and shows how he's becoming a heroic man in a world that has gone terribly awry. The Berserker Armor is one of the greatest transformations of all time, because it's preparing Guts, a man powered by self-sacrifice, for his final clash with Griffith, a monster fueled by the sacrifices of others, instead of being the final trump card unto itself. With that said, guys, I've been Boofar191. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. I'll see all of you guys next time. Goodbye.